Hey everyone, welcome to another Thursday night at home with Olympus. This is one of our more special episodes where we invite community photographers to join us and share some of their work and some of their favorite photos and maybe how they got that shot. Give us some tips and tricks. We love sharing the work of our community photographers. Those are people like you guys down there in the comment section who are always the best. We love chatting with you. Tonight, as usual, this will be a recorded episode, so you can rewatch it later. If you jumped on late, don't worry about that. And as always, we're going to have 4 people presenting tonight, and you can ask questions and answers during their segment, and we will try to get your answers answered on screen if at all possible, and if we can't, we will answer them in the comments later. I guess that's it for the housekeeping tonight. One thing I do want to note is we have a couple of people, because this is the wildlife episode, that are kind of out in the outskirts, in the wilderness, if you will. So we may have some internet glitches from time to time. Bear with us, but I think we're going to be good to go. And tonight, I'm really, really excited because I get to invite back one of my absolute favorites. We're going to have our Olympus Explorer, Brooke Little Bear, is going to be joining us tonight as my co-host. Do we want to bring Brooke on? I think we should. How's it going, Brooke?
Hey, I liked the part when you said bear with me because I felt like you were alluding to my announcement in a few moments because now Brooke Little Bear is with you.
Yes, and you're here. And I'm very excited that you agreed to be my co-host because I know that you're an amazing wildlife photographer and I'm not. So I feel like I needed somebody much more experienced to join with me tonight.
Well, and I'm super excited to be here because I am actually a huge fan of everybody that we're having on tonight. And when we were looking through their photos before we started this episode, I was just losing my mind. So I'm just as excited to watch and hear what they have to say as I am to be part of the discussion with everyone.
Yes, me too. I was looking through the slides and there's a couple that I'm like, dang, I didn't know how to do. I'm very excited to learn how to do that. That's cool. Like, I want to hear what you have to say. So it's going to be really awesome tonight. And we have a ton of people on. We have people somebody just said it's 115 currently. I feel you, gentle sir, because in my studio right now, it's 106 degrees where I'm broadcasting. So, whew, I'm dying.
It was about 115 here. I'm in Utah, like 2 days ago, and then a wildfire erupted, and now the smoke is blocking out the sun, so it's cooled down quite a bit, which is a strange occurrence of events. Like, welcome to 2021.
Yeah, thank you, nature. I think,
maybe.
We've got people from Australia again. I'm always amazed that you guys join our show so late at night, but thank you. All over, a bunch of people from the UK. So hi to all of our friends over across the Atlantic Ocean. Welcome. Lots and lots of people from all over. Bend, Oregon. That is a beautiful place. Hi, Bend, Oregon. I miss that area. It's so nice.
There's lots of wildlife out there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The greatest road trip land in the world. Mm-hmm. I love it out there.
I agree.
So should we bring on our first guest, do you think? Are we ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm super excited to see what he has to show us.
Awesome. So our first guest, his name is Keith. We're going to pop him on in just a moment. Maybe. Hey, Keith.
Hello.
Hey, Keith.
How's it going?
It's going well. Where are you located at, Keith, or what region?
I'm on the Oregon coast, but I was going to complain about the heat, but I really can't after listening to you guys talk. So.
No, it's terrible.
It's sunny and
75,
and I'm dying already.
I wish it was 75.
Yeah, that sounds awfully chilly.
I would need a jacket.
I think it's the first time I'm wearing short sleeves in like 3 weeks.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I put on clothes for this. No, I'm just kidding. It's so hot, though. So, Keith, you're on the Oregon coast. I love the Oregon coast. I'm a Portland, Oregon native, so the Oregon coast is where I grew up as a kid. I love it out there. What kind of animals do you get to see out there?
Yeah, it's actually pretty diverse. It ranges everywhere from, the bald eagles, which are one of my main subjects, but we actually have a lot of owls out here, which was somewhat surprising when I moved from more inland, that there would be so many. And whether that be barred owls or pygmy owls or great horned, like they're pretty much everywhere, which is really cool because I get to kind of watch them grow up.
Wow, that is really cool. I wouldn't expect that from the coast.
Yeah, I didn't either, but there's so many clear cuts in the forests, like the Oregon Coast Range, that it's just prime habitat.
Keith, do you ever have the opportunity to see whales near where you're at? Is that something that you see yourself doing eventually?
I would love to, yes. There was actually a report of an orca in Seaside Cove, which is about 5 minutes from me. Wow. And that was yesterday. But wow. I didn't get a chance to get out there. But it hasn't been seen since. So there are definitely chances to see them, but it would probably be better just to go out to the San Juan Islands than look for them right here. But it's definitely something I want to do. I just haven't done it yet.
That's awesome. So Keith, can we see some of your work that you've been doing recently? Can we share some of that? Can you talk to us about some of these shots here?
Of course. So a lot of these are just kind of a culmination of like my favorite of the year. That top left one is an owl about the size of a tennis ball, maybe Keith, a baseball.
Is that a boreal owl?
No, it's a saw-wheat owl.
Oh, it is a saw-wheat. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. And I've been looking for those things for years, and they're just really hard to find. They do not like to be out in the open whatsoever. So when I found that, I probably spent all day with it. But it was a solid 6 hours from my house, which was not a fun drive. But this one's pretty special to me. I've been diving into backlight really, really heavily lately, and I think it's just something that a lot of wildlife photographers need to add to their repertoire. And it's something that's very fun to do, especially when you aren't in the best conditions. You can use backlight to kind of, accentuate the things you want in the frame and get rid of the stuff you don't. This was actually taken about 2 minutes from my house at the local estuary. So it's a cool spot, and I'm really happy that the light kind of did what it did.
That's really interesting. I love the way that you, and I know I've seen a couple of the other images coming up, so I know that this is kind of a thing you've been focusing on, but, I was always taught this old rule of shooting on sun angle, and right. It's so nice to see this kind of different aspect or different lighting style, and it still really, really work.
Yeah, I think, everyone that shoots wildlife or just gets into photography always says, like, put the sun behind you and shoot. And, I do the exact opposite about 90% of the time. So it's pretty funny to watch, the differences between these images. And that's what we'll kind of go through. For example, these were shot of the same fox in the San Juan Islands, like 5 feet from each other. I just moved my body about 5 feet and the light just totally changes. And so that's kind of what I like to do because, you see this line of photographers shooting it with the people with the sun behind them. And I'm the one on the opposite side trying not to get the photographers in the background of my shot. But oftentimes it provides a better composition that more people don't have. And I think that's why I'm kind of drawn to this style. And I would love to see more people doing it.
Well, and that's why I'm personally so drawn to these images, especially the one that you had first when we started talking about this subject. Photos of fox kits can be pretty common, especially this time of year, right? When they're denned up, everybody knows that this is the season for baby fox photos. So it can be kind of hard to take that image that really stands out in a crowd of other similar looking photos. And even more especially, I'll dial it in even more, in an area like the San Juan Islands, that's definitely a nationwide travel spot to photograph fox kits.
Right.
And just by changing your angle and the way that you're shooting into the light makes your images so much more unique than anything I've seen out of that area, I think, potentially ever. I mean, it really is like such a simple thing to do that creates just an insane amount of difference in the output of the image.
Thank you. I mean, that means a lot, especially coming from the images you shoot of fox kits. So
Right.
I
That's like
appreciate
Brooke's thing.
Yeah, I know.
And these are significantly, they stand out even against my own images. I mean, I have never thought about the lighting in the way that you have. I'm really excited to go out and try some Keith methods when I have the chance to.
Well, thank you.
Hey-
I'm
hey,
excited to
Keith.
see what you do with it.
Hey, Keith, somebody wants to know if you're shooting the 150 to 400. Are you using that one or?
Well, I did for about 2.5 weeks and then had to give it back to you guys.
Oh.
I have not been able to buy it yet, and now with it on back order, we'll see when I can do that. But I shoot with the 300 f4, and most of the time, the 1.4 teleconverter just lives on it. That
Same.
very rarely comes off.
All right, we got one more for you, and then we'll switch
Do you
over.
use a filter? I do not use a filter. I don't even put a UV filter on my lenses. I think that, the lens hood is going to do its job if I were to drop the camera, for one thing. And I find that if I'm going to put a cheap piece of glass over an expensive piece of glass, it's probably just going to be a hindrance. So I don't use them. That's a controversial subject, though.
I was going to say, I think a bunch of people are just like,
Oh, I'm
what
sure.
did he say?
Yeah, I'll definitely get some flack for this one.
Sorry, we
But,
want to have Keith back on the show, guys. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I love
This is
this
kind
one.
of the-
That's
Go ahead,
ahead.
sorry.
no,
This is
I was
kind
just
of the
saying I
same
love
thing
this.
as that fox photo where I just stepped 5 feet to my left. And it's just a completely different image. And so what I like to do is kind of just like shoot the, normal front lit, side lit shot and get something that's detailed enough to where I'm like, okay, I could work with this if I needed to. And then I go backlight. So that way, at least I'm coming home with something, but chances are that if I can get the backlight, that's going to win out. That's the one that'll go in the website. That's the one that'll go on social and stuff like that.
I like that you do the safe image and then the creative kind of pushing it once you have a little bit more time to think about what you're shooting.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to with this
Yeah.
because I can't tell you how many times I've been burned with shooting backlight first and like something just wasn't quite right. And I have to like go back and find that subject in the same spot again.
Right.
But this is another one where it was just simply repositioning myself to the other side of this log. And, that gave me a soft backlit background instead of the blown out highlights of the blue sky. And, it's something that I really enjoy doing, and it pushes my creative ability, especially in post, because as much as I can get it right in camera, there is, post-processing techniques to pull those highlights out or pull those shadows out without, destroying the image. And that's pretty fun for me.
I'm just amazed that you're able to get multiple shots from different angles without losing the animal
Me
or
too.
like running away.
That's some good fieldcraft.
It's pretty easy with these two. This eagle pair is local to the estuary near my house, and I think I've, seen them probably 500 times in the last 6 months. And so I think they start to recognize me. At least I'd like to think so, but they're pretty habituated to people walking around, and there's tons of dogs out there. They just live their life and they don't care. So it makes for a pretty nice subject, especially with a bald eagle pair that's so, nice to get close to and actually like lets you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I have a bird that does that, but it's just a scrub jay, and I have like 400 photos of him. But he likes us.
Hey, scrub jays
he's
are
my
really
bird
cool,
friend.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
scrub
are.
jays are cool birds. And now it's time for you to get 400 photos of the scrub jay shooting into the light.
Yeah, no. Now I've got a whole new way to get these photos of my best friend, the scrub jay that eats all the figs off my tree. All right. So do you want to talk about like maybe your technique a little bit and tell us how somebody else might be able to try to do what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. These tips are maybe a little bit out of order, but the first thing is like, it's gonna look dark in camera, and don't be afraid of that, simply because you're exposing for the highlights and not something in the normal realm of what your metering would be. And so when you're exposing for the highlights, you're going to get that like super rich black color in the background, but those highlights are going to retain their color. And I think that's the main thing that I try to do is I use exposure compensation and just play with it until the highlights are not blown out. And then that usually gets me in a good starting spot to kind of play with shutter speed and aperture until I can get to a point where it's not noisy. But the biggest thing that is a struggle with this kind of imagery is simply the autofocus, because the highlights are so small, especially with like rim light like this one. It's hard for any camera to focus on that very tiny piece of light. And so what I end up doing is just using manual focus with peaking turned on for things like this. But like with that Fox one, that's a little bit more, bright and not quite so, like this was taken at 5 a.m. at sunrise. So the light was like perfectly in line with my lens at the same level. So it was going to give a darker style. But with the Fox shot, it's a little bit more, I need to leave some detail in there and make sure that I can pull out those shadows. Where with this one, I wanted those deep shadows. So there's two styles. One is backlight, which is that Fox. And then this would be, for what it's worth, called rim light, where it's kind of giving you that silhouette with the rim light. But it's, I try to, I always shoot wide open. That's another thing I'll probably get some slack on. But between shooting with the light in front of me and shooting wide open always, that's like the two biggest things people tell you not to do in wildlife photography. But I'm here to tell you guys that it works, and it's something that you can do, and it pushes your skill and it pushes you to try new things. And that's what's so exciting about photography for me. So this is a big way that I can kind of flex that and try to dive even deeper into this. I really would like to do this with video as well, which I still have not figured out.
Well, yeah, it's your willingness to push the rules and do what everybody else isn't doing that makes your images so unique and makes them really, truly stand out. Like, that's definitely a good lesson there, right? Don't be afraid to push it, because if it works, it really works.
But at the same time, make sure to take the front lit one too, so you don't go home empty-handed.
Yeah, right. I like the combo of the safe route and then getting a little bit, off the beaten path. I think that's really wise advice that I'm going to start thinking about a lot more too now when I go out and shoot.
Yep.
That's
Start
awesome.
on sun angle. Got to do it by the book first, right, Keith? No.
Yeah, I mean, you can if you want.
I'm just kidding. So, quick question before we move on to our next guest. What is an animal you've never shot before that you really want to shoot? Photograph, not shoot. We don't shoot animals.
Definitely. Do you know how many times I have to have that conversation with friends? Like, oh, I went out and shot a bald eagle today. And they're like, no, that is not what you should be. Yeah. Anyway, I really want to photograph a bear. I've never even seen one in the wild since I've had a camera in my hands. And like, I find that a little surprising, but I just haven't found any. And, living on the Oregon coast, we have black bears, but they're pretty high up in the hills, and you don't find them very easily. So Brooke, you might want to come out here and help me track them.
I would love to come out to where you're located. That is definitely a dream destination for me to return to for wildlife. So when I'm in the area, I'll let you know, and we'll go.
Yeah, please do. I can find you eagles on the beach, and you can find me the bears in the hill. That
is the best trade-off I've ever heard.
Perfect.
I can sign off on this trade deal.
Awesome.
You heard it here, folks. This is a blood pact. Well, sorry for saying shoot instead of photograph, everyone. I apologize. I should not have said that. But I just want to say thank you so much to Keith for coming on here and sharing your images and your tips from the Oregon coast, which is the best place. It's so beautiful out there, and I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy your lovely 75-degree weather.
I will try to. I'm currently sweating with no air conditioning right now, so I feel your pain, even though it's totally different and 30 degrees colder.
Awesome. Well, we hope you'll hang out down here at the bottom with us and watch the rest of the show. And we are going to bring on our next guest. All right. So I think Dixie's up next, right? Hello, Dixie.
Hi, Dixie.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm in air conditioning right now, so this is unusual. Normally I'm in my fifth wheel camper and sweating like a, you know what.
Like me?
Yeah. Yes. Sweating like a
You're sweating like a Michaela. Awesome. Well, so where are you located at?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Oh.
Northern Wisconsin. It's, yeah.
So you're almost Canadian?
Yeah, almost. You know, my heritage is Canadian, so I kind of claim it. But we're about an hour east of Minneapolis and about an hour south of Lake Superior.
Nice.
So you're in the location where winters are unsurvivably cold, and then summers are unsurvivably hot.
Unsurvivably hot. Humid, yeah. Yep, we get it all. And we can all have it all in one day. You know.
That's everything that I know about Wisconsin. That is where my knowledge ends.
I've literally only been there once, and I was wearing like 3 jackets because we went in the wintertime, and I was there for a day, and I was like, I was not built for the weather here, so kudos to you for surviving.
Yeah, it makes you tough. You kind of realize how tough we are when it's, 30 below, and you're watching people walk around with their jacket not zipped up, and they're just,
They're
and,
in shorts.
I
they
just
maybe,
picture them,
yeah.
They're all wearing only hockey jerseys. That's like the uniform of the state of Wisconsin in all weather patterns.
No, it'd be Packer jerseys.
Oh, that too.
Yes. So Dixie, do you want to show some of your images to us, and maybe we can talk a little bit about what you like to photograph? What do you do?
I call myself a wildlife photographer. I prefer mammals, but when I can't find mammals, I will shoot birds because there's plenty of birds around. So
Yeah.
I end up my feed's full of birds.
Yeah, I like birds because they're pretty predictable. They always show up, and you can photograph them when nothing else shows up. They're always there.
Yeah,
I disagree. In my experience, birds are so harder because of the fact that they can fly and I cannot.
True.
So I have tremendous respect for all of the folks who say that they shoot birds when the mammals aren't available, because I just think you're doing a very hard thing, and you're doing it really well.
Thank you.
I absolutely love this shot with the 2 birds. Like, was that luck? Did you use Pro Capture for that, or was that a luck shot?
That was actually out in the Tetons. That was just in May, and I spent the entire weekend trying to find Bear 399, and no luck. So we just went driving around, and we were going up, a switchback road, and almost at eye level with this osprey nest, and I'm like, a bird, I can do birds. Let's just see what we can get this bird, And yeah, I was able to get that shot of these 2 birds having a little spat.
That is amazing.
That's a very fair trade-off, I would say.
Right?
I want 399. I've never seen her.
I actually, I understand that. I have not seen her yet this year, despite the fact that I'm up there constantly. So that's also for just a little bit of lack of looking. I've been trying to push myself into looking at the more obscure subjects, like the osprey, because that's just a stunning shot.
I actually tracked 399 through all my other photographers I follow. I knew the minute she was out of her den. And I was on the phone booking a plane ticket.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So do you shoot a lot of birds in flight? I see that one here. And I know I had a question earlier that popped up, and I forgot to ask Keith it because I am failing tonight. What kind of settings do you like to use when you're capturing your birds in flight? Do you use like continuous autofocus, or what's your go-to?
I use on my camera, I set my little custom setting dial to. I have 2 of them that I set. One of them I keep at Pro Capture all the time.
Yes.
And the other one I keep at the continuous shutter, and I have it automatically at 1/4000th of a second. I keep it wide open, 2.8, and then auto iOS, and I can just immediately move to that setting when I have a bird in flight and try to get it, and it's just what I normally shoot at. So I normally go for that. And then I can easily change my shutter speed quickly from there if I want to slow it down to bring more light in, or, it's usually to bring more light in.
I love the idea of just the quick custom mode to switch you over into the bird settings without even having to think about it. That's so smart.
That's been a saving for me, because I was, maybe shooting something on the ground and it wanted to fly, and I'm quickly trying to change things.
Right.
And doesn't work. Just click, click. I know it's right there and I'm ready.
I was doing that forever. I was constantly changing my settings back and forth because I have set up like this whole backyard studio. Thank you, Steve Ball, for teaching me. But I always missed the birds in flight because they would take off and I'd be like, how quickly can I change everything? And I finally set a custom one for all of my birds in flight shots with my continuous autofocus and my sequential shooting. And I'm so happy now because I'm like, oh, click. So easy. I can switch over. Now I'm ready to shoot birds.
I'm going to do that as soon as we're off this episode.
Right? I put it off forever and I regret it. But, all right. So Dixie, let's see your shot and let's talk about it. And I know you're going to talk about a couple other shots too. So let's start here.
Okay, this was my first fox. I was foxless until about a year ago. I couldn't myself find a fox. I looked and looked. I tried tracking. I could not find one. And I started asking friends, and my friends like, oh yeah, we got a fox right by our house. So I show up the next morning, park there. I was ready to wait forever. I had my coffee and my donuts and my podcast, and my earbuds. So I wait forever. And it was maybe 2 minutes, and these two fox kits popped out and they're playing on the rocks, and it was just, you're just like, whoa, otherworldly. So I just, in about 10 minutes, I probably shot 1,000 shots and, fell in love with foxes. But the thing is, this was in the morning. This was morning sunlight. I am not a morning person. I hate getting up. But this is one time I knew, get your butt out of bed, get over there. And this was what really sold me on morning light and getting up in the morning, because it was just, the glow was beautiful. You just couldn't copy that in post-processing. So my thing now is I like to arrive a little before sunset and try to get settled in, so I'm not, getting there causing commotion during the best light. So get there, kind of get settled in, get used to the area. Wait for anything to show up. I tend to, for night shooting, I tend to do more driving around and scouting the areas at night, and you usually will see animals moving around. And so then I know that's where I want to come back to in the morning and sit and wait and try to get a shot there.
Do you have any, where do you go to find wildlife around you? Do you kind of hang out at the national parks, or do you have special secret places? You don't?
I am very lucky. In Wisconsin, we have wildlife everywhere, and I spend my summers in the woods next to a lake. So
Amazing.
I have them in my yard all the time. This fox wasn't in my yard, but it was maybe a 10-minute drive away on another lake. So
Wow.
Super close. We have a wildlife preserve very near us that I will see animals around in that area. I haven't shot any pictures there, but I see them quite often. Yeah, I got some turkeys and a really bad picture of a bear one time there. But around here, my backyard is where I get most of the birds. The eagles and the swans are mostly down in Alma, which is on the Mississippi River, which is about an hour from my winter time home. And I will spend at least one day almost every weekend all winter long going down there and shooting birds, because there's open waterways, and so the birds will congregate there, and you can get eagles year round there. And then about an hour north of us, we have an elk herd with about, I think currently about 299 elk, and
Wow.
they predict it will get up to about 400. So in the fall, we spend most every weekend camping in the national forest up there and tracking the elk. And last fall, I got my favorite elk shot to date. It wasn't a bull, but it's a long story, but how I got it was pretty exciting. So I have everything around me except grizzly. There's even a moose occasionally. Once in a while, I don't know how many they said, maybe 80 moose in the whole state, but once in a while you'll see a moose.
Nice.
I haven't personally seen one around here, but I keep my, eyes open. But yeah, no polar bears, no grizzly bears. We do have mountain lions, but
Ooh, those are
luckily I'm very glad to have not seen them, but they are in our
okay.
area. But I do not want Brooke. I always think of you when you're out tracking them. I'm like, girl, watch behind you. You need to have eyes.
As soon as you said you have mountain lions, I was like, oh, can I come over?
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be
Every
there in
time
You get
5.
one of those hats with the eyes in the back.
Every time I see Brooke's mountain lion tracker box that she has currently set up that's not quite going so hot yet, I just remember everywhere in the hills around us, we have mountain lions as well. And all of our national parks or the trails that you go on, it has this horrifyingly hilarious icon of a guy saying what to do if you encounter a mountain lion. And it's literally just go, ah! And it's this icon of this guy. Just, you can't even see. Oh, it's hilarious.
I mean,
And you're looking for them.
My personality, though, is I am just as a human pretty much always like this, which is probably why the mountain lions elude me, even when I'm not even in the area anymore.
They know that you're going to go. Ah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, that girl, get away from her.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your process here. I'm getting off track with the mountain lions.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and Dixie, I love, I'm so excited to hear you talk more about this because I love your editing style on this photo. I love how you cropped it. So let's dive in.
Thanks. Yeah, I really get into my post processing. I find it kind of a little challenge. Sometimes I'll take a really, really bad photo and try to turn it into something that looks just decent. But yeah, this one cropped out the up in the upper right corner where there's that X that was a construction trailer that was parked on the side there, and just was able to get that out of the way with cropping. And then didn't like the rocks on the bottom. I mean, even though that was their den, they were living in this pile of boulders that were moved because there was a house being constructed right behind me when I say the shot. And so their den was right in this pile of rocks. And sadly, that pile of rocks was gone. So the den is gone.
So
and then I like
the trick to foxes is to go find a construction site. I like this tip. No, I'm just
yeah, or a pile of big rocks.
kidding. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yep, and then I just like to change a little bit of the lighting sometimes to enhance the sunlight. I mean, the sunlight was there, but in the post-processing, just enhanced it a little bit.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't even notice in the first shot when we saw this that it was a telephone wire or an electric wire.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Fantastic cropping. I love what you've done with these shots. I really do.
Thank you. Yeah, cropping out the lines, or just getting rid of them just by cropping. It's much easier than trying to clone something like that out. But then I didn't like the osprey that was behind the one with the wings out. So I'm like, well, let's see if I can get rid of that osprey and see if it makes the picture better. And I was able to do that just in Lightroom. I've gotten pretty good at erasing things in Lightroom. And then, of course, I like to bring a little bit, enhancing the sunlight on it.
I mean, you nailed it with the edits in this.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, especially people who are new to wildlife photography, see photos, similar to the final products of these and think that every wildlife photo is coming from a bajillion miles into the woods and everybody's hiking out there on foot and it's all full of scary mountain lions hunting them on their way to location. And it can intimidate people from diving into the genre.
Right.
I think,
and they think it looks like that right out of camera.
Right,
and
exactly.
It doesn't. You turn it into a beautiful work of art.
Exactly. Like you take the opportunity whenever it's presented to you, whether it's super wild looking or not, because like even if the circumstances surrounding the animal aren't the most wild, the animal itself is still really wild. So it's still like the subject in the moment that you want. And it's just so interesting. And I love seeing how people can get creative with presenting the photo far more appealingly while still, being in an area that's actually accessible to anybody, or for the most part, for most people.
Yeah, for most people. So we do have a quick question from John. Do you crop first or after you process the image? Do you crop to get the framing first or then do you edit or backwards?
That's not a given. Sometimes I wonder if I crop first, then will the processing be different or vice versa? I think I do a lot of processing before and then crop some more and maybe crop some more. Yeah. I
just keep getting in closer.
Yeah.
Closer.
Yeah.
I like that. Awesome. Well, I think that we hit the end of your photos. Same question. What's an animal you've never photographed, but you really, really want to?
Polar bear, elephant,
She's got a
great white
list.
shark,
Ooh.
more grizzly. I have a shot of 610's cubs that I liked, but I want more grizzly. I'll take a mountain lion. Wolf. I haven't got wolf yet. We have wolf packs near us, so I want wolf. So yeah, there's a lot. You know,
Yeah, you've got a list. Do you keep a journal so you can like
lions.
mark them off when you get one that you like?
You know, I just in my head think, you know, like this is the shot I'm going for, and I have found that when I get the shot that I'm working at, I'm a little depressed afterwards.
Me too.
Because
It's
then I'm like,
over.
ugh, oh, I got it. Oh, no, now what do I do? You know, so
I
yeah,
relate
so
to
then I
that.
have to think of something else and go for that. And yeah, you're a little disappointed. Like my wood duck picture, 2 years I could not get a wood duck, and then I got it, and it was like beautiful. You know, one that, you know, I've gotten bad ones before, but it was beautiful. And then I was like, now what? So
Right,
yeah,
you gotta
I'm
find a
afraid.
polar
that. Right, I can
Yeah, I'm
appreciate
afraid
that
for
you
the
went from wood duck to polar bears and great white sharks. It's clear, it's clear that you love the adventure and the challenge, and that's so awesome. And I can't wait to see what you eventually come up with when you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be waiting on Instagram to see your polar bear photos.
Yeah, I can't wait. That's what I really want.
Awesome. Well, Dixie, thank you also for your time tonight out in
Thank you.
Wisconsin. I know we're all in weird time zones tonight. I appreciate it. And Brooke, who do we have up next? Lacey, right?
Yep.
I think Lacey's
We've got our
joining
Canadian
us.
joining us.
Ah, yes, the finger gun. There she is. Hello,
thanks for having
Lacey.
me.
So, what part of Canada are you in, and is it cold there?
Well, I'm currently in Alberta, and we just went through a heat wave, but it's cooled off now. I don't know what it was Fahrenheit, but 33 degrees. Ooh, so pretty hot.
Yeah.
You're in a log cabin, which is awesome.
Yes.
Is this
I'm
your full-time residence, or are you working
No.
while you're out on an adventure?
Yeah, I'm a wildlife technician, so I'm out in the field right now, and this is actually in a barn, and it's an Airbnb that I'm staying at right now.
That is awesome. I love it. Your location matches your photography style, so it seems
Thank
very
you.
fitting.
So, what did you say you do? Explain a little bit more for us.
So I'm a kind of a wildlife technician, so I work with conservation at the Calgary Zoo.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
There you are.
okay. So yeah, so I'm out doing lots of research on endangered species and yeah, kind of all over Alberta.
Oh, that speaks to Brooke. I know it does.
It totally does. We should be friends, Lacey.
Totally.
So, I take it your job is probably kind of what got you into this, or were you into photographing animals before your job?
Yeah, definitely my job got me into it. But what really got me started was I moved to the Yukon for a couple years. And before getting there, I was like, heard so many amazing things. So I really wanted to get a camera for up there. And that was probably 7 years ago, and it got me hooked.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's see some of your photos. Oh,
Yeah.
those are beautiful.
So cool. So rustic
Thanks.
and mountainy. You can just feel like the raw wilderness in all of your images.
Yeah, thanks. So I like to call myself more like a nature photographer because I do wildlife, but I also do lots of landscape as well. It's a good, if I can't find wildlife, then hopefully I'm in a nice setting where I can get some landscape shots. So yeah, that's
Wow.
yeah, that's
Those are so
a lot
cool.
from my travels throughout the kind of Alberta and Yukon.
So do you bring your camera with you to work and then just kind of like sneak off and take photos with animals when you see them? I won't tell your boss, I
Yeah.
promise.
No, I wish. I kind of go on my own time. I mean, I'm often out in nice places, so I get to kind of scout areas where I want to go afterwards. But yeah, I go on my own time, and yeah,
Those are
go.
super cool.
That lynx is
Thanks.
just mesmerizing. A lynx is one of my ultimate dream subjects because we don't have them down in the areas where I typically photograph. I have to go up pretty far north from where I usually am
Yeah.
tromping around the forest. So hopefully one of these days. I mean, they are just so elusive and so beautiful.
Yeah, totally. I want to see more too. This was in the Yukon, but they're supposed to be around in Alberta. I've seen photos of them, but I haven't had any luck yet. Yeah.
So cool. All right, so Lacey, you're going to talk to us about how you captured some of these images, right? Do I have that right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, well, my favorite type of wildlife photography is definitely when I can be out there and like hiking and coming across something like out in the wild and off the track and off the roads. But I also really like driving and exploring kind of new areas in my car. And so I actually refer to my vehicle sometimes as my mobile blind because I just find that when I'm out there in my car, it kind of acts as that blind for me. So yeah, exactly, like right here. Unfortunately, like I think wildlife are used to vehicles, so if you can stay in your car, yeah, sometimes it gets you a pretty decent shot. So yeah, so oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, do you use any sort of like special thing to hold still? Because I've shot from my car a ton of times, not probably as much as you guys have, but I always feel like I'm fumbling around like my mirror or something or hitting something. Like, do you have any sort of tool that helps you with that?
Yeah, so I got a few tricks for that. One is when you're pulling over for your subject, like just turn the vehicle off for a few reasons. I mean, one being that it's better for the environment, but also just eliminates that like vibration and that shake, so you can get a more steady shot that way. Also, as you can see there in that photo, I'm kind of like hugging the door and that with my arm there, and that really helps kind of steady my shot as well. I sometimes bring out like a bean bag, which is actually like a magic bag. I don't know if you know what those are, but some people put them on their necks or whatever for sore muscles. But it actually works really well, like placed on the window, and it like kind of cups your lens, and it really makes a steady environment.
That's awesome.
There are like professional camera like photography bean bags, but the magic bag works well too.
One of my other methods too that I highly recommend is in a shot like this where you can see the moose's, luckily from your angle the mirror wasn't blocking him. If the mirror is blocking the moose, just knock it right off. I mean, what do we need rear view mirrors for anyway? We're not looking back, we're only looking forward, guys.
Yeah, totally. This actually brings me to one of my other tricks that I really like. And so for this photo, actually my partner spotted this moose like kind of away in the distance. So what I like to do often is to like stop way ahead of where the subject is. And that kind of tells me that like, okay, if that animal moves towards me, then it's good. It's comfortable. It's not stressed out. It knows I'm there. And so that kind of gives the animal that option to decide, you know what, I don't want to be here. I can go into the woods, or I'm going to keep on my journey. And like, yeah, and if it passes in front of me, I think that's just, awesome. So I like giving them that option.
Yeah, that knowledge of the wildlife behavior probably helps you from your line of work, and obviously just from your experience living in wild places and photographing wild animals as well. Once you know and can kind of predict a little bit better what an animal's probably going to do, it gets so much easier to position yourself best success, which clearly you're master of doing. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
so I love the thoughtfulness of animals that goes into that too, of, you know, letting them choose whether or not they want to be photographed. I think that's like great piece of advice for anyone who's not gone out and done wildlife photography but sees animals. Do you ever have to kind of like wait it out for a long time? I mean, like, what's the longest you've sat in your car waiting for an animal to come near you?
Yeah, I mean, I've sat in my car for a couple hours for sure. For one, like the slide, if we go back to it, there was the badger there, so it kept going into its burrow anytime it like kind of saw me, and that was because I was actually trying to get out of the vehicle and kind of get onto the ground to get this kind of shot. But in the end, because anytime I came out, it would like duck in, and then so I stayed in the vehicle and kind of opened my door. And like, because the Olympus has that screen, the viewfinder that you can move. I like tilt it up towards me, and I'm literally like hanging my arm down, like close to the ground, like just in that little space between the door and the ground. And I managed to get this kind of eye level shot, which is really what I was hoping for. But
Yeah,
I
you
waited a
nailed it.
long time.
Yeah.
You nailed it. And it just goes to show how much like the advice that you're giving about using your car as a mobile blind really makes a difference. When you were outside the vehicle, the Badger wasn't helping you get the shot at all. Once you
Yeah.
kept yourself mostly concealed and your motions kind of more subtle, you got the shot that you were waiting for, which is just freaking awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah,
Badger.
it worked out well.
That's a really awesome shot. And I love that you were able to get really innovative with getting to eye level, because I know
Yeah.
Brooks talked about this a lot in her presentations too, about getting eye level with your animal. However, and she was on last week's episode, she was talking about holding her camera over her head to get a shot. Yeah.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's always kind of thinking outside the box and going that tiny extra step to get these really creative shots, which is just fabulous. These are beautiful.
And again, I just want to point out also the natural body posture. As somebody who's familiar with wildlife, you can tell just at a glance with these images, these are really relaxed animals. Like this is a bear
Yeah.
cub gazing off into the distance as if you're not
Yeah.
even present. The mobile
Yeah.
blind that you're using with your car just gets a level of intimacy that I think people might not realize is really difficult to get when you're just on foot in front of an animal.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, this is another example where I stayed like in my vehicle for a couple hours, and it was a big mama bear was there too, and with this cub, and she was so comfortable with me being there, and I think they were just so focused on like feeding on the roots of these willows. So yeah, I got to spend a lot of time watching it looks like here the cub was actually watching the mom and what the mom was doing, and it's just like, I don't know, I really like this photo because it really shows that he was just being super observant and paying attention to what his mom was doing.
Cute. He looks so happy.
He's so cute. He just looks comfortable, which is so important and makes your images stand out as well.
Yes.
Thanks.
Awesome. Lacey, that was so great. And we've got a question. What lenses do you like to use for wildlife?
So I only have I have a landscape and a wildlife lens, so I only have these two, and it's a 100 to 300 millimeter. So yeah, it does the job for me. I really like it. Yeah.
Really quick, I want to hear what your number one subject that you want to photograph is.
I almost forgot.
Oh boy, I really would love to get further north, and I'd love to photograph some muskox. Yeah,
Ooh,
seen,
cool.
Yeah, I've seen
I
some
like that.
amazing photos, and I think they're incredible species. So I'd love to get out there for that.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't even know what that is. Do I? I really don't.
They are like, picture a cow, but it's
Okay.
also a grizzly bear, and it's also a water buffalo, and it's also a bison, and it's also a moose, and it's also like bigger than you're probably imagining that it is.
Is this a made up animal?
It's real. They are insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a very good description of it. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I learned something new today about the mega beast, apparently. Huh, I'm going to Google it when I get done with this, I
Yeah.
promise.
Definitely
You'll
do
look
that.
at it and you'll be like, wow, Brooke has a way with words. She's so right.
You always have a way with words. Oh,
Thank
man.
you.
Lacey, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope everyone has been seeing everyone's Instagram pages go across the ticker on the bottom. Make sure if you like some of the work you've seen that you follow our new friends. We love sharing their work with the world. And we are going to have our next guest on. So enjoy Alberta. Bye, Lacey. All right. Brooke, you want to introduce Drew? You know Drew. You
I'll
introduce
introduce Drew. Drew is an absolute legend, a fantastic wildlife photographer, a wonderful conservationist, and a really good friend with a big beard. So,
The big beard.
without further ado, let's bring on Drew. He is also in the remote wildernesses up north. Drew, where the heck are you? Ever.
And where's
Well,
your
today
beard?
I'm coming to you from Anchorage, Alaska. Well, I have to grow the beard because Brooke's always making me blush with her introductions, and so I have to hide it behind this. But no, I'm coming to you from Anchorage, Alaska today, where it's a toasty 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 15 degrees centigrade. It's about perfect. I have to, don't want to rub it in, but come on up. Hey, it's fun.
I was gonna
I'll
say,
be
can I
there
come
soon.
visit?
I'm actually on my way shortly.
Brooke is on her way.
Oh, that's so awesome. Are you going to go shoot or photograph with Brew?
Yeah.
Brew.
Brew.
You're Brew
Brooke
now.
and Drew, we're Brew. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna go shoot bears with our cameras.
Yeah, I'm looking
welcome.
forward to it. It's going to be here before we know it.
I can't wait.
That's so awesome. I'm jealous. On the next trip, can I come too? I can't photograph worth a darn. Sorry.
If you're
Not
lucky.
animals, anyway. If you're lucky. I'll pay.
We'll show you how.
You can teach me. I want to know all of your tips. And I've seen your slides, so I know that you have more tips to show me so I can become a better wildlife photographer. Let's see some of the work that you've done recently. Oh, look at those bears.
Amazing.
Oh, those are
amazing.
great. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
so
I
this
love. Is it
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
is that a polar bear at the bottom? What is that?
Of course, it's a polar bear. This is
It's
Drew
so
Hamilton.
gorgeous. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, Dixie, go hang out with Drew.
Yeah, so I am so lucky to live where I live here in Alaska, and I've been doing photography and leading photo trips here for 20 years now. And so it is kind of this interesting mix of these northern animals. My specialty is brown bears, and that's kind of where I got my start back in the late 90s. And I've branched out into polar bears, and then actually during at least a few of these pictures here are kind of a silver lining from the pandemic. Like that doll sheep from Denali. It's not something, because of work, and I'm usually out guiding for brown bears, it's not someplace I would have been able to go if I was working. Or that the big bull moose up in the left, that's about 20 minutes from my house, where I wouldn't be if it wasn't for the pandemic. So it's really been a fun and interesting challenge to go out and get these shots in the field and adapt it and figure out, well, I can't do that. Well, what is available locally for me to go out and see?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I liked when you were doing your Denali missions, seeing you amongst other animals other than just the bears was like this weird crossover episode of like, I've never seen a Drew Hamilton in this ecosystem before. This is amazing.
Specifically,
And your
only
work
bears.
all came out fantastic. So
Well, it's been so interesting in that when we were talking about doing this slideshow, and we're going to talk about a moose shot next. Like
who are you? And what have you done with
I mean, you
Drew?
don't even know me anymore, Brooke.
It's been too long.
But I wanted to pick a couple shots that really I don't think I would have gotten or without an Olympus camera, without the Olympus technology. And so the first one here is kind of a modern twist on a classic. So before we get into how we shot this, we have to give a shout out to Tom Mengelson, who originally shot the catch of the day, which is this iconic shot of the Bristol Bay sockeye salmon jumping into the bear's mouth at Brooks Camp. He shot it in 1988, and he was out in the field for a week to get that shot. And of course, then he had to wait for the film to be processed. It's much more satisfying now for the instant gratification. But this is the shot now with Olympus cameras that everybody can get. Well, as long as you come to Alaska, get in a float plane,
Right, as long
get
as
another
you're
float plane.
surrounded by 1,000 bears.
It's just that easy. But for all photographers, I mean, this shot, thanks to Tom Mengelson, is on the bucket list. So on the next slide, we'll go into details on kind of the specs of it. But really, what makes this shot possible is Pro Capture mode. And when Olympus first announced the Pro Capture mode, I think I was so excited that I didn't even really sleep that night, because I think a lot of people were thinking about birds and things like that. And my head instantly goes to Brooks Falls. So in my guiding, I do a lot of film crews and things like that. And they talk about how do they get those fantastic BBC style? Well, they use basically a pre-record system that gives them the footage from before they push the button. Well, that's virtually what the Pro Capture mode is. Yeah. And so when you go to Brooks Falls, and I go to Brooks Falls more times than I can recall, and it's always this, it can be intimidating. There are a lot of people that go there because everybody wants to get it. And with the Olympus, and I'm doing this with this one was done on the Mark II with the 300 f4 and a monopod. You can kind of just stand in the back and you see all these people with their big long glass. They're giving themselves hernias just getting it in there, and they're trying to figure it out, and they're chimping and saying, oh, And in the meanwhile, you're in the back in pro capture mode, just going, oh, look at that one. Oh, look at that one. Because it's able to give you the shots before you push the button. Because these salmon are jumping like popcorn. And so you never know when it's going to happen. So as soon as you see that bear make a grab, you hit the button, and you've got the shots from before you actually hit the trigger there.
It's a camera time machine.
It is a camera time
machine. It really is. And really, if Brooks Camp and Brooks Falls is on your bucket list, you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't go out there with pro capture mode. So these bears, they're always moving. Things like their head, they're swinging back and forth. They're looking for these fish. So you kind of have to have a little broader depth of field because that head's going to be moving back and forth. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you see that bear catch a fish or look like it's going to catch a fish, you hit the button. And then, of course, everybody else is there with other stuff. So they're intensely frustrated that they're not getting the shots. And so don't show it off right away. Just you'll cause a riot.
You'll get thrown into the falls and you'll
Ooh.
be the new fish.
Right.
Yes.
And of course, it goes without saying that while you're out there, you're following all the bear safety regulations. And they do have such a good safety track record out there. So it's not something you bears are always something you should be aware of, but they're not something you need to be afraid of. So don't let the presence of these huge bears deter you in any way from going out there.
So you say you do tours with bears? So could like people sign, I mean, for people like me who've never seen a bear in real life and honestly probably don't want to, could people, sign up, like go out and find like bear tours of Alaska and they would be safe bear tours or, to do something like this? Would you recommend that versus going out on your own and just trying to find a bear? I would.
Highly recommend.
I would.
There
are places you could do it by yourself. There are places like Brooks. Brooks is some place that, there's a, Park Service staff. It's a system that they they'll have the peak day they've had in the summer was like 400 people will rotate through there. But when you truly get out into some like I just got off a boat. I was out on the Katmai coast for 3 weeks, and we were working on a film project. And that's the kind of thing when you get into some of those situations where, nobody hires a guide to take them somewhere. You hire a guide to bring you home, which is really the most important part.
And I can
Anybody can go, but it's getting you home.
From personal experience, Drew is a fantastic guide, not only because he is a genius with like a lifetime's worth of experience in wildlife and bears specifically, but because, as you can probably tell, he's also an incredible photographer with just an insane amount of creativity and knowledge of how the camera works and what to do to achieve a shot. So I'm super stoked about his next tip because he actually taught me this trick when we were off the shores of Hudson Bay on the tundra photographing a polar bear. He showed me the next thing we'll talk about with the moose photos. And it's been one of the best wildlife photography tricks ever. But I might have jumped the gun. Talk about these first.
Well, I just wanted to throw this slide in there. Like, this is all from one day at Brooks Falls using pro capture mode. It would take a lifetime of non-Olympus cameras at Brooks Falls to get just these shots from a single afternoon at the falls. So it really is, it's a game changer on so many levels. Hope, before you go practice with it, get the dog and then you throw some sticks, things like that. But
throw some fish at your dog, smack them in the face with some salmon.
And the catching shots are great, but that one in the upper left, I like the bloopers, because you'll end up with all these shots of like fish smacking them in the face, and it's just it's great fun.
The unskilled bear that's not really good at getting dinner. I like those. Yeah. Oh man,
yeah,
that's amazing.
The next one is a moose shot, actually, which is kind of new territory for me. And this is another one. It takes a little more, technical computing and technical photography skill to get this one. But since I'm a guide and we're taking people out and to shoot photos, and most people are shooting with a field of view equivalent of like a 100 to 400. And as I already mentioned, I'm rolling with the Olympus 300, so it's a 600 field of view equivalent. When I set somebody up for a 400 millimeter shot and I've got a 600 millimeter shot, I'm just that much closer than they are. And when that can cause problems is with things like moose, which are incredibly hard to photograph because they've got all these things that stick out they've got antlers, they've got long legs. It's a very broad depth of field if you're trying to get them front to back. So it can be very, very tricky. And so the workaround that I've come up with is taking a trick from landscape photographers. You can actually stitch an animal. And I've used this trick successfully on this moose. It's so effective. I've stitched walking polar bear families as they walk across the tundra up on the north slope. Now,
Wow.
when you're doing something like this, you have to make sure that your exposure doesn't change in between shots. You have to make sure your focal plane doesn't change between shots. And the workaround for that on Olympus cameras is you put it in the fastest mode, in your drive mode. It's the fastest one out there. And you can basically just pan with it and hold the button because your exposure is not changing and your focus is not changing. And so you can get this string of in focus, perfectly exposed shots that goes right across your subject. And
Wow.
I used for this one, I used the X. And so I was able to switch because I wanted a horizontal output. I was able to shoot it vertically to stitch 3 shots together to make one horizontal image. And it's really, and in that fastest mode, I don't know if you guys have really, taxed your Olympus camera to see how fast it can really go. But when you really get it up on step, it's like driving a Ferrari on ice. It is all over the place. So it takes, you lock your elbows in and you pan with it. And we're actually working on a little, and Brooke's going to help me with this. She doesn't know it yet, but when she gets up here, we're going to do a little in the field tutorial on how to take photos right the first time to be able to stitch stuff like this. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you the three images that were put together to make this single image. And so it is a matter because again, he's got a 55, 60-inch rack going left to right, and it just doesn't. It doesn't fit. And it's not always a situation, particularly when you're dealing with wildlife, backing up or moving. These animals want you to be predictable. They want you to know. They want to know what you're going to do before you do it. So backing up might be a surprise, and it just ends the situation. So you have to do everything from right there where you are. And this is the workaround for people using that 300 millimeter f4, and it's highly effective.
It's truly, honestly, become one of my favorite tips ever in wildlife photography. And I genuinely mean it when I say Drew taught me this while he was guiding me. In the middle of a blizzard on the shores of Hudson Bay while a polar bear family is walking right by us, he's like, want to learn a trick? And I was like, is this a survival trick? Like, what's happening here? And it was how to take a pano photo. And I think I botched that opportunity big time because I didn't fully have it dialed. It definitely takes a lot of practice to get to like the Drew Hamilton levels of mastery. But what I've also come to love is it works really nice when an animal is just far enough away where you have the opportunity to get a lot of the landscape in the backdrop, but your lens is still just a little bit too close in. You can get the picture of the animal and like pano upwards too. Like, it's just such a good, well-rounded photo tip that takes a really creative brain to think of. And it's so awesome that like you share this with people, because if I had invented this technique or thought of it, I would have not told anyone and let it be my superpower.
Drew, what do you edit in? What do you stitch in? Like what can people use to put these all together?
I'm not some super editor or anything like that. If I can't edit a photo in under 5 minutes, I usually I don't. I'll go on to the next one. And so these are all done with Lightroom, just using the basic panorama function. And if one isn't quite lining up, I'll take it into Photoshop because I think it's got a little more powerful engine for putting it all together. But yeah, it's basically done with just your basic commands on Lightroom. So if you've ever stitched a landscape together, you can stitch a moose. So
cool. I love that sentence.
You too can stitch a moose.
Now we're taxidermists.
Right? I was like, I feel like we've crossed over so many different lanes today.
Our the duality of photography is really poetic.
Oh man. So did you stick with this in color, or where did you go with this?
I've been because we've had so much time lately, I have been doing a lot of playing around with black and white, and I go back and forth. And so I was going to throw it out here to people. We've got the color one up right now, and I believe the next slide is the black and white version. Maybe we'll do a little poll, and people can say, hey, what do you just throw color or black and white there in the comments.
Yeah, let us know. Is it better to have your wildlife?
I won't know, but
Drew may never know the answer.
You have to go back and watch it later so you can see the comments to see if our comment section said, you know, color or black and white. Come on, guys, let us know.
Personally, I think they're both insane in their own ways. Honestly, I'm just more mesmerized by your technique that went into the photo that like I can't even think about the color versus black and white yet.
It's funny, we're at 50-50 right now. I'm watching them come in on the side, and we've got color, black and white, color, black and white. Oh, this is great. Oh, man. These are so cool, and I would have never thought to stitch those together. And for wildlife, like panoramas, star shots, Milky Way, anything like that. Yeah, stacking and stitching makes sense. I would have never thought, oh yeah, I should stitch that moose together, which is also a sentence I never thought I was going to say. So,
Well, and you can do it with moving animals too. If you go check out my Instagram, there's a picture of a polar bear and a cub on a whale skull way up on the North Slope in Alaska. And it's 3 vertical shots stitched together. So if you go check that out, you'll see kind of just what what this technique is capable of.
Speaking of crazy sentences, just polar bear family on the skull of a whale. That's a crazy sentence.
Things get really weird in Alaska, don't they? So have you ever done more than just 3 images, or you usually stick with just 3 quick ones?
Oh, challenge accepted.
That's a great question.
No, I've done. Actually, I did. It's again these moose, and I stitched together 10 photos of a moose it was back in the trees, and I was in the trees with it, and it's sleeping, and it's just it's all these just tangle of antlers and noses and whatever, and so I ended up doing I think I did 2 vertical panoramas together. I think it ended up being
Wow.
10 shots total, which of course this ups your overall resolution for a printable image. And so if you've got a school bus or a skyscraper that you want to print your image out, and just to have a skyscraper laying around that needs a photo wrap or something, this is how you do it.
So somebody asked a question, can this technique be used in handheld high-res mode? In theory, I think it could, but also would be very, very challenging. Have you ever tried that?
I have not tried handheld high-res. It would have to be a stationary subject.
Yeah, really still.
I tell you what, when Brooke gets here, we will go out and we will try this, and then we'll do another one of these, and we will show you the results.
Yeah, we'll find some sleeping bears. That would be really fun to try.
I know where they
Something
keep
not
'em.
moving.
We'll find
If anyone
them. I know where
knows,
they
it would
are.
be you.
Somebody else is asking, do you shoot handheld or do you try to use a tripod out there in the wild?
It's all handheld. Yeah, I haven't had to. So, because I when I was switching systems, and I didn't want to have to carry a tripod. Because I'm a guide, I have first aid kits and I have food and layers and things like that, and so I never want to carry a tripod again, except for like aurora photography. And then when I'm traveling somewhere, if I'm going to Canada for 6 weeks to photograph aurora and polar bears, I have to take all this stuff. And so basically my kit, which has everything from the 7 to 14 2.8 all the way to the 300 and the extenders and everything in between, it all fits in the overhead compartment on a 737. Like that was my standard, and that's what I got.
Well, it's a good thing you use Olympus then, right?
Yeah, seriously.
That's the only one that fit the bill.
Olympus cameras look exceptionally tiny in Drew's hands. He's similar in size to probably like the grizzly bears that you would see on the lower 48. So not as big as an Alaskan grizz, but still very, very large individuals. So when he holds an Olympus camera, it looks like this. So it's a fun sight to see as well.
On that
But
note,
I have the X now since you've seen me.
That's true.
on that note, somebody wants to know if you've photographed a Bigfoot, or question, are you Bigfoot?
That's an interesting twist. I have photographed Sasquatch, technically Sasquatch, on the photo tours I would lead. I do own a life-size Sasquatch costume, and we do a segment on crypto photography, but nobody knows it's coming. So we'll be set up for something else, and Sasquatch will run through, and you know what? Nobody's ever gotten a photo. I mean, those are the challenges of crypto photography. And so, if you've got any pull with, Olympus, if there's a crypto photography mode that is just like it could be just a Bigfoot button on the back of your camera, and you just hit that, and That's what I'm advocating for moving forward.
I think that is the best contribution I've ever heard to the camera development conversations.
Right. I'll run that right up the ladder. Okay, Drew? I promise.
Yep. Call Japan.
Well,
Here we go.
So I take it then the one animal you've never photographed but would like to photograph is Bigfoot, or is it something else?
No, like I said, I have photographed Bigfoot, but no, snow leopards. Snow leopards. Yeah.
That might happen
it was,
soon for you.
Well, it might, and it's the same thing. You know, I said I couldn't sleep after ProCap mode was announced. Well, as soon as the 150 to 400 was announced, brain instantly went to snow leopards, because that really is I mean, you're going up to 13,000 feet. You don't want to have to lug all this junk up there. And so with the Olympus system and that lens, the built-in 2.5, bring a doubler just in case, like that, in my mind, is the ultimate snow leopard rig.
That's
Agreed.
awesome.
So I'll see you
Okay,
in
I
the
hope I see
Himalayas.
those photos.
Yeah, I'll see you there, Drew. I'll meet you up there.
I'll watch it from Instagram.
Perfect.
Brooke and I will do a live.
Yeah, there we
Perfect.
go. You guys go live, and I will sip a margarita on the couch. No.
In the Himalayas with Olympus
Yes.
and me.
Yeah. I'll wear a parka, though, so I can feel like I'm a part of it.
You might be a little hot if you do it from your studio.
Oh, I know. It's still so hot. Somebody else said they were in Northern California in the comments earlier, and I was like, I feel
I'm so sorry.
you. I'm so sorry. It's so hot. Well, thank you so much for your time, Drew, and enjoy the middle of nowhere, Alaska, and I hope that your tours are going really well.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Have a great night, Drew. All right. We made it. I smiled a lot tonight. And
That
so
was
did-
awesome.
That was so fun.
Awesome photos, awesome photographers, amazing stories. I love when wildlife photographers get to talk through their process in their images, because it's this like great combo of photography and adventure that's so inspirational.
Yeah, and so different, you know, everybody's style of shooting tonight was completely different, which is why this episode of Home with Olympus is always my favorite when we get the community photographers, because we can pick a topic and everybody will be completely different. And
Right.
it's very exciting to see different people's input. So on that note, we're going to let everyone go soon. 2 weeks from tonight, just like always, every other Thursday night, we will be going live again. We are going to have Olympus visionary Jay Dickman on the show. He's going to be talking to us a little bit about travel photography and even some camera basics, which will be really interesting. I'm very excited because I know he's a world-renowned photographer, so I love learning from him.
I think I speak for like everybody who's familiar with his work that he is a tremendous inspiration. And I attend every talk and read every email or, you know, write up that he's ever done probably in the history of all time, because he's just somebody who's so fantastic at his art form and is also so fantastic at teaching it. So everyone listening, you want to attend this one. It's going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've been working with him for like the last couple weeks, trying to get everything lined up for what we're going to talk about on that episode. So I've been seeing little tidbits and sneak peeks, and it always makes me really excited. So for everyone who tunes in regularly to the show, next month we're going into July. We're going to try to focus a little bit on travel photography, because hopefully some of us are getting out and traveling again after a very long year. So we hope that you can come join us for the whole month of July. We have 3 episodes lined up because there's 3 Thursdays in July, so it'll be
Nice.
really exciting. And thank you so much, Brooke, for offering to be my co-host tonight. I think you added something very special to the show, and
This was super fun. I'm honored to be here as always.
I love getting to interact with you, so it makes everything easier. I don't feel so nervous.
There were a few moments where I laughed entirely too hard at the things that you said, which is what I was hoping for tonight. And I hope everyone watching got to laugh a little bit too, because that always makes learning. I think it makes things easier to retain when you can associate laughter and good feelings with the tips that you were taught. So
Exactly. Well, have a great night, everybody, and we will see you in 2 weeks, Thursday night, same place. Oh, and for the people that keep asking, yes, this was recorded. Yes, you can replay it as soon as we're done. Don't worry, we're here for you. You can watch this forever and ever. It lives on the internet. So thank you guys for
Yay.
tuning in tonight. Have a great night, everyone.